What is happening? Welcome to the RPG Fantasy Sports Report, Week 13 edition. I'm RPG, normally sitting in Ron Burgundy. He was suspended without pay this week for taking his helmet off and laying a paw on one of my cats. The NFL may not take that stuff seriously, Andre Johnson, but the RPG household does, and my wife threw down the thunder. So he is not here today, just me. Check out my site, www.rpgfantasysportsdoc. That's doc.com. Let's get right down to Week 13. Started tonight. Michael Vick show, as usual. That guy stays healthy. People are going to reap the benefits and win championships. It's just not fair because I don't have him in either of my leagues. Obviously, injuries play a huge factor in this week. The Brian Westbrooks, Pierre Thomases, Mike Tolberts, Percy Harvins, Malcolm Floyds, Austin Collies of the world. Just stay on top of them. Check the inactives. I'm not going to go over all of them. I'm going to go over some big ones. Ben Roethlisberger being the first one, just because of how important he is and when he plays, Sunday night game. So unless you own Flacco, who plays against him, or Brady or Sanchez on Monday night, you need to decide Sunday morning whether you not want to play Roethlisberger or not. Broken foot, allegedly. Pittsburgh's refuting that. Either way, at Baltimore, division game, bad offensive line. He's a tough play, but monitor his injuries. AP, dinged up ankle. Obviously, the good thing is he's a morning game, first game. So if he's out, hopefully you backed him up with Gerhardt. Talk about that later. Let's just talk about Vincent Jackson for 10 seconds. We won't talk about him the rest of the season. Thanks for nothing. Tried to trade for him in one of my leagues. I talked about it in the last couple weeks in my articles on this show. What a big piece of poop. I'm glad I didn't get him in the trade, and good riddance to him. Brandon Marshall wasn't doing anything before he hurt his hamstring. He says he's going to play this week. It's tough to have a receiver come back from a hamstring injury. When it looked really bad 2 weeks ago on this Thursday night, it looked real bad when he walked off the field. If he plays, you may not have the depth. You might want to start him, but check his injury status. And Antonio Gates. Antonio Gates watch 2010, Week 13. Let's go. He played last week. Couldn't cut to save his life, but he did play. That's encouraging. He did catch a couple balls. You got to think he's going to get better. The fact he played last week is encouraging for this week. You need to have another tight end on the roster, and with most of their games the rest of the season at home, you need to know that they're going to be playing in the late games all the time. You need to have a backup just in case he doesn't play, because he's going to be a game-time decision the rest of the season. So those are some of the injuries to look for. Some people I like this week, starting your studs. You're starting them, you're starting them. Even Chris Johnson is 5 yards last week, you're starting him. You're starting Arian Foster. You're not sitting any of your studs. Here's some guys I like that aren't normally in the top 20, in and out, week to week, that I like this week. At quarterback, especially if you have Roethlisberger and you're a real gunshot. Matt Castle, Sam Bradford. Since week 3, Matt Castle has more touchdown passes than anybody in the league. I read that today. I couldn't believe it. He's almost making a believer out of me. Their schedule's soft. Dwayne Bowe's on fire. Start him. Try to get him if you can. He's got a good playoff schedule. I never thought I'd say that. Sam Bradford, Mr. Consistency. Doesn't make a lot of mistakes, and he gets to play the Cardinals this week. The only thing I see taking away from his value is the fact that Arizona's even worse against the run, and Steven Jackson might go crazy. But I got to like Bradford at least a little bit this week. And if you have a shaky quarterback issue, he's a good spot start. Running back Matt Forte. Hated him all season, and I just have to come around. Cutler was on his butt. Forte wasn't going anywhere. Had to break off long, screen passes for any points the first 3 or 4 weeks. And then lately, he seems like he's running harder. It seems like the Bears have figured it out. They're playing great defense, putting him in good field position. I like Forte against Detroit. Noshawn Moreno. If Denver could just stay in the game, this guy would be throwing up 30 points a game. 2 weeks in a row, first drive, capped off by a Moreno touchdown. He's sitting at about 10 points. And then he doesn't do much the rest of the game. They get behind. He is good out of the backfield, though. I do like him this week in what I think will be a shootout against the Chiefs. Felix Jones, I don't care if there's no Marion Barber. I don't care if he's playing. It's Shard Choice. I'll probably get a few carries. He may even start the game just to keep it in some sort of repetition. Felix Jones is great out of the backfield. Gets a lot of screens. And Indianapolis can be run on. And then if Indianapolis gets up early, he's still good out of the backfield catching the ball. So he's going to be effective this week. Toby Gerhardt. This is a little bit contingent on whether or not AP plays. If AP plays, I still think Gerhardt's a decent flex just because AP is going to be limited. But if AP doesn't play, Gerhardt's a top 15 back, hands down. Wide receiver, Blair White. This is only if Austin Collie doesn't play. If he does play, downgrade Blair White off this list. I think Collie's out for at least one more week with the concussion symptoms. Blair White just scores touchdowns. Johnny Knox, I think he's due for a long touchdown this week. He's pretty consistent every week anyway. But I think Cutler breaks a long one off to him this week. Malcolm Floyd, I mentioned him in injuries above. I think he didn't get a lot of snaps last week because San Diego went up fairly early, and their defense scored a couple touchdowns, and he didn't need to play. And Rivers was just checking down most of the game anyway. Asamoah is supposed to be out this week. Most likely he came back too early last week. The Chargers still like to throw the ball. They're at home. I like Floyd this week. Kevin Boss. As long as Steve Smith and Hakeem Nicks are out, which is at least this week and maybe next week, Boss is the most trusted receiving option on that team. Even though Manningham's more electric, Boss is trusted. I like him this week. And Jason Witten, due to all the injuries of tight ends, you're starting Witten no matter what. I can't imagine you're not. But I see Kitna playing the checkdown game all week because Indianapolis is real good against the pass. I think Miles Austin and Des Bryant are going to be real limited. Even if they get way behind, I think it's going to be a check-off game to Felix Jones and Witten. And even if it's close, Indianapolis is going to bring the heat with Mathis and Freeney. A lot of checkdowns to Witten. I like him this week. And the Miami D. I like them because they get sacks, and they got Vontae Davis on the outside. They get some picks every once in a while. But it's not so much Miami as it is they're playing Jake Delhomme this week. I think Delhomme starts again this week, and anybody that plays Delhomme, it's like the Houston defense. I start any quarterback against them. Well, would almost start any defense against Jake Delhomme. He's good for a pick six each game. They're going to put a lot of pressure on him. They're going to get some turnovers. Peyton Ellis is going to get his. Cleveland's going to still get some points, but Jake Delhomme's a turnover machine. So anyway, those are guys I like this week. RPG's tips of the week. 2 tips. This one I mentioned before, but I'm going to mention it again. Back up your stud. Back them up. That doesn't mean you back up if every running back you have, but there are certain backups that could step into the immediate starting role and be very, very good, if not studly. You need to back up your studs. There's nothing you do about Westbrook. You know, he only had 1 carry or 2 carries before Gore got hurt. And even though Gore's injury prone, if Westbrook isn't even involved, it's tough to pick him up. And Westbrook's like 100 years old, so I understand that. But Gerhardt, you need to have him. He needed to be on your roster if you're an AP owner. I don't care how small your roster is. Well, I mean, obviously, if you can only hold 10 guys, it's different. But most you can hold 14 to 18 guys. You got to have him. If you have, you need to hold Derek Ward, Javon Ringer, Toby Gerhardt, Jerome Harrison, Willis McGahee, Michael Bush. Those are 6 guys I can think of. It's not really off the top of my head because it's on this list right here that I put down. But that you got to have. If you have their starters, you got to have them. You got to back them up. The playoffs are here. You need to get strong and need depth. If Rice goes down, McGahee's the #1 back. You just got to back them up. Number 2, tip of the week, waiver wire. You need to set one up. I mentioned it in the past. You got to set it up. There should be no way that Gerhardt should be able to be picked up Sunday afternoon during a game after AP gets hurt. It completely benefits the people like me who sit in front of the TV and sit in front of their laptop all day Sunday. There's going to come a time when I'm not going to be able to do that, and there's a time where other people in my league can't do that. They've got kids. They've got to work. It's not fair. You need to set up a waiver wire. You have to. I don't care. You can figure out how you want to do the order. You can't pick up guys during Sunday games. It's horse poop. It's crap. I might have mentioned it in earlier episodes. I can't even remember at this point. But I know a lot of AP owners are getting jammed because they couldn't pick up a guy because they were out with their kids. It's bull poop. Set up a waiver wire. Got to do it. So week 13, I apologize for the voice. A little under the weather this week. The articles sort of lagged as well. I apologize for that. Visit my site, www.rpgfantasysportsdoc.com. I want to thank Dennis Gowan for joining me today. Ron Burgundy will not be back next week. I just decided that because my boy Paco Jones is going to be in the house. I want to give a shout out to my San Diego State Aztecs in both football and basketball. Hoops undefeated. And football, we're going to a bowl game, most likely Poinsettia Bowl in San Diego. San Diego State Aztecs sports turning around. I love it. Thanks for joining me tonight. Have a good weekend. Playoffs are coming. If not next week, the week after that. Stay strong. Good luck this week, unless you're playing me. And have a good weekend. I'm out. Thanks.